I sold it. That's what my daughter said, just like that, while pouring herself coffee in my kitchen. For a second, I thought I heard her wrong. Sold what? But the way she wouldn't meet my eyes told me exactly what she meant. You sold Mom's music box? I asked. She shrugged. Yeah, it was just sitting there, Dad. I needed the money for our trip. I froze. The trip you and Derek took last week. Don't start, she said, slamming the mug down. You said you couldn't help, remember? So I handled it. Handled it. That's what she called it. Selling the only thing my wife ever left me. The small wooden music box that played Amazing Grace, the song she hummed every night before she died. My throat felt tight. How much? $350. $350. 40 years of love, gone for the price of a weekend at the beach. Derek leaned against the counter, eating cereal straight from the box. Relax, Frank. It was old. You can get another one on eBay. I turned to him. That box was your mother-in-law's heart in wood and metal. He smirked. Then she'd understand letting it go. From the couch, my granddaughter Brianna spoke without looking up from her phone. Grandpa, it's not that deep. You're making it weird. Not that deep. I looked at all three of them, my blood, my family, and felt something inside me twist hard. Grace would have cried if she saw what they'd become. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just said, you had no right. Linda crossed her arms. I have a family to think about. You can't keep living in the past. I stepped closer, voice calm but sharp. You just sold it. So what? So now you've sold me too. She blinked, confused. But I was already walking away. In my study, I found the pawn ticket lying on the counter. Main Street Pawn, wooden music box, $350. I folded it, slid it into my pocket, and grabbed my truck keys. When I passed through the kitchen again, Linda called out, "Where are you going?" "To fix your mistake," I said, and opened the door. The morning light hit my face as I stepped outside, and for the first time in years, I wasn't just angry, I was awake. Main Street Pawn sat between a vape shop and a rundown laundromat, the kind of place you could drive by 100 times and never notice. The parking lot was half empty, sun beating down on faded asphalt. I parked my truck, sat for a second, and stared at the pawn ticket in my hand. Item, wooden music box. $350. I didn't care what it cost. I just wanted it back. Inside, the shop smelled like metal and dust. A man behind the counter looked up from his stool. Bald, middle-aged, thick glasses that made his eyes look too big. His name tag said Carl. "Morning," he said. "Looking to pawn or buy?" "Neither," I said. "I'm here to get something back." I slid the ticket across the counter. This item was sold a few days ago. A wooden music box. He glanced at it. "Yeah, I remember that piece. Nice craftsmanship. Plays Amazing Grace, right?" My chest tightened. "Yes." He tapped the ticket with his finger. "Belonged to your wife." I nodded. "She passed 3 years ago. My daughter sold it without telling me." Carl's face softened a little. "I'm sorry, man. That's rough. Let me check if it's still here." He disappeared into the back, leaving me staring at the rows of old guitars and used jewelry glinting in the fluorescent light. A few minutes later, he came back carrying it, Grace's box. The same faded walnut wood, the same little silver crank on the side. My throat went dry. "Here it is," he said. "Still works, too." I was about to clean it up for the shelf. He set it on the counter and turned the crank. The tune began to play, soft, broken in places, but still beautiful. Amazing Grace. For a second, I couldn't speak. I just listened. "How much to buy it back?" I asked. "For 100, he said. "That's what I'd sell it for." "Fair deal." I pulled out my wallet without thinking. "Cash okay?" He nodded. "Sure thing." I handed him the bills and took the box carefully, like it might shatter in my hands. As I turned to leave, Carl said, "Hey, before you go, when I was checking it earlier, I noticed something strange." I paused. "Strange how?" He flipped the box over and pressed one of the brass screws with his thumb. The base shifted slightly, making a tiny click. "See that? It's got a false bottom." I blinked. "Eh, what?" He used a thin screwdriver to lift the panel. Inside, tucked flat against the wood, was a folded piece of paper. Old, yellowed, edges worn like it had been hidden there for years. Carl looked surprised. Guess whoever sold it didn't know this was in there. He slid the paper toward me. "It's yours. Go on, take it." My hand shook as I picked it up. The paper was small, no bigger than a dollar bill, and when I unfolded it, I saw my wife's handwriting. Grace's neat, looping script. It read, "If you're reading this, Frank, I know you found the box. There's a savings account under my name. First Federal Bank, Box 431. Keep it quiet. Use it when you finally see what I saw." I stared at the note, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Grace had hidden money? But why the words "when you finally see what I saw"? Carl frowned. "Everything okay?" I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my pocket. "Yeah, just didn't expect this." He gave a small nod. Sometimes things find their way back where they belong. When I stepped outside, the sunlight felt different, brighter, sharper. The music box was warm in my hand, but the note in my pocket burned hotter. Grace had left me a secret, and maybe a warning. I didn't know it yet, but that folded paper was about to change everything in my house. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the music box on the table beside me, the folded note sitting next to it. Every few hours, I'd turn the crank just to hear it play. The song was scratchy now, but still sweet, still her. By morning, I made up my mind. At 9 sharp, I drove to First Federal Bank, the one mentioned in Grace's note. The woman at the front desk smiled politely. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" I handed her the note. "My wife, Grace Lawson, used to have a safety deposit box here. I think this might be the number." She took one look at the handwriting and said, "One moment, please," before disappearing into the back. I waited, hands pressed together, heart thudding. A few minutes later, another woman appeared, a manager, judging by her blazer and calm voice. "Mr. Lawson? I'm Dana. I checked the records. Your wife did have a box here. It's been untouched since it was opened 6 years ago." 6 years, I repeated quietly. That was a year before Grace got sick. She nodded. "You're listed as the joint holder. I'll need your ID, and we can take you to the vault." Inside, the air was cool and still. Rows of metal boxes lined the walls like silent guards. Dana used her key, I used mine, and the drawer slid open with a low metallic sigh. Inside was a long envelope, and something heavier wrapped in cloth. I sat down at the small table in the corner. My hands felt unsteady as I opened the envelope first. It was a letter, Grace's handwriting again, neat and gentle, like she'd written it knowing I'd be shaking when I read it. "Frank, if you found this, I'm probably gone. I didn't tell you about this money because I knew you'd talk me out of saving it. I wanted to make sure you'd be okay, even if the world turned cold. I saw the way Linda treated you when I got sick. The little comments. The things she called help. I didn't want to believe it, but I know our daughter. She loves comfort more than kindness. One day she'll test how far she can go. When that day comes, use this money to free yourself, not to fix her. Remember, love doesn't mean surrender. I love you, always have, always will. Grace." I had to stop reading halfway through because the letters blurred. My eyes burned, my throat felt tight. Dana gave me a soft smile and stepped out of the room, giving me privacy. When I finally unfolded the cloth bundle, I found it full of money, stacks of bills, all crisp and neatly banded. I counted just enough to understand what I was looking at. Almost $50,000. Grace had been saving behind my back, not for herself, but for me. For this. When I walked out of the bank, the sunlight hit me like a wave. The note in my pocket, the letter in my hand, they both felt heavier than gold. I drove home slow, thinking about her words. Use this money to free yourself, not to fix her. When I pulled into the driveway, Linda's car was already there. I could hear her laughter through the open kitchen window. She was on the phone, cheerful, carefree. It was the same laugh she'd used when she sold the music box. I stood on the porch for a long time, the letter trembling in my hand. That night, I took out a fresh notebook, dated the first page, and wrote one sentence. Tonight, I start keeping track. The next morning, before anyone woke up, I began taking pictures of bills, groceries, and the car Derek never paid to fix. Every little thing they took from me, I recorded. Grace's money would protect me, but her words would guide me. She'd seen the truth years before I did. And now, I was finally ready to see it too. I started with the electric bill. $246. My name, my signature, my payment. I took a picture of it with my phone, then laid it flat in a folder I'd labeled proof. That morning, the house looked peaceful from the outside. Birds chirped. Coffee brewed. But inside, something had shifted. They didn't notice. They never did. Linda was sitting at the table, complaining about her job at the insurance office. Derek was still in his bathrobe at 10, pretending to work remote. Brianna sat on the couch, laughing at her phone. I watched them like a man studying strangers. Every time they asked for something, I noted it. Gas money, groceries, new shoes, car repairs. It was always just this once. But just once had been every week for 3 years. Grace had called it before she died. She saw it coming, and I hadn't wanted to believe her. By noon, I'd filled 3 pages in the notebook, dates, items, amounts. I kept my handwriting neat. I wanted the truth to look organized when it finally came to light. That evening, while they were watching TV, I installed a small camera in the living room. It looked like a smoke detector, just another white circle on the ceiling. I watched a YouTube tutorial, did it carefully. Under Ohio law, as far as I knew, I could record anything in my own house. I didn't want revenge, I wanted proof. 2 days later, the camera caught Derek rummaging through my wallet on the counter while I was in the shower. He took $40, slipped it into his jeans, and walked out. I replayed it 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining it. I saved the clip on a flash drive. File 1. Theft. The next day, Brianna used my debit card to order clothes online. When I asked where my card was, she shrugged and said, "Mom used it." Linda denied it. "You probably misplaced it, Dad." But my phone pinged with a bank alert. 3 online purchases, none of them mine. File 2. Unauthorized charges. I wasn't angry anymore. I just wrote it all down. At night, I'd sit at my desk, playing the music box softly while I worked through receipts. The sound helped me stay calm. Grace's melody filled the silence, reminding me why I was doing this. Every note was a step toward freedom. One evening, I walked past the living room and heard Linda talking to Derek. "He's getting weird," she said. "Keeps locking his study. If he's hiding money, we should find it before he does something stupid." Derek chuckled. "We'll handle him when the time comes." Handle me. I went back to my room, heart steady. They thought I was still the quiet, soft old man who'd let them drain him dry. They didn't know about Grace's letter. They didn't know I'd spoken with someone that afternoon, a lawyer named Carla Reese. Carla specialized in elder rights. When I called her, she said, "You've done the right thing, Mr. Lawson. Documentation is everything. Bring me what you have." The next day I did. Her office was small, but neat. She looked through my folder page by page, receipts, photos, screenshots, video stills. She didn't interrupt once. When she finally looked up, her expression was calm but sharp. "Mr. Lawson, this is clear financial exploitation. You've got enough here to start a formal case. But if you're ready for something faster, we can draft a tenancy agreement." "What do you mean?" "You make them tenants," she said. "You charge rent legally. When they refuse, you file for eviction. No drama, no shouting, just the law." I thought of Grace's letter. Use this money to free yourself, not to fix her. I nodded slowly. "Let's do it." Carla smiled. "Good. I'll prepare everything. They won't see it coming." That night, I came home to find Derek sitting in my chair, remote in hand, feet on my coffee table. Linda was scrolling through her phone, and Brianna was laughing about something on TikTok. I looked at them all and said quietly, "Enjoy your evening. It's one of the last free ones you'll have." They barely heard me, but soon they would. Carla didn't waste time. 2 days later, she called me back to her office. When I walked in, There was a neat stack of papers on her desk with my name at the top. "Here it is," she said. "A standard tenancy agreement. You're offering them rent at a fair rate, $1,200 a month, half the utilities. When they refuse, and they will, we'll move forward with an eviction. All legal, all clean." I looked at the pages, reading each word. I wanted to be sure. Grace would have wanted me to be sure. Carla slid a pen across the desk. "Sign here and here. I'll have a notary deliver it personally." I signed, slow and careful. My hand didn't shake. "Once they get this," she said, "everything changes. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just let the paper speak." That evening, I sat by the window waiting. Around 6, a woman in a black blazer pulled up in front of the house with a folder in her hands. She knocked twice, firm and polite. I didn't move. I let Linda open the door. "Good evening," the notary said. "Are you Linda Miller?" "Yes. I'm here to deliver a tenancy notice and rental agreement for this property." Linda blinked. "Eh, what?" "It's from Mr. Frank Lawson, the property owner." I could hear her laugh, sharp, disbelieving. "My father doesn't need to give me that. This is our home." The notary handed her the papers. "You'll need to sign acknowledging receipt. You have 30 days to respond." "I'm not signing anything." "That's fine, ma'am. Delivery is still complete." The woman turned, nodded at me through the window, then walked calmly back to her car. Linda stormed into the living room, waving the papers. "What the hell is this, Dad?" I stood up. "It's an agreement. If you want to live here, you'll pay rent like everyone else." "You can't do that," she snapped. "We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other," I said. Her voice rose. "You've lost your mind. You need help." Derek came in, eyes already hard. "What's going on?" I handed him one of the copies. "It's called responsibility." He scanned it quickly, his jaw tightening. "You can't just throw us out." "I can," I said. "And I will." He took a step closer, his voice low and full of warning. "Be careful, old man." I didn't move. "That's the first thing you've said that's true." He stared at me for a moment, then stormed out of the room. Linda followed, shouting. Brianna muttered something about how I was losing it and disappeared into her room. When the house finally went quiet, I sat down and opened the music box. The song filled the silence, soft, trembling, the same way Grace used to hum it while she cooked. I looked at the letter she'd written me, still folded in my wallet. Love doesn't mean surrender. She was right. That night, Derek didn't speak to me. He just paced. I could feel the tension through the walls. The next morning, I woke to find the kitchen drawers open, my mail scattered across the counter. A few envelopes had been torn. My bank statement was missing. They were looking for something. I smiled to myself, calm. I'd already moved my accounts. Grace's money sat untouched in a new bank across town. I picked up my phone and called Carla. "They opened my mail," I said. "Document it," she replied. "Take pictures, keep everything. The more they act out, the faster this moves." So I did. Every threat, every insult, every slammed door. On the 10th day, Derek shoved me in the kitchen. Just enough to make a point. Just enough to make me stumble. He said it with a smirk. "Careful, Frank. Accidents happen when you're old." The camera caught it all. That night, I sent Carla the video. Her reply came fast. "That's assault. We move to emergency eviction tomorrow." I sat back, playing the music box one more time, and whispered to Grace, "It's almost over, love. I promise." The courthouse smelled like coffee and floor polish, sharp, sterile, nothing like home. Carla met me in the hallway, holding a slim black folder. "You ready, Frank?" I nodded. "I've been ready since the day she said she sold it." We walked into the courtroom. My daughter and her family were already there. Linda sitting stiff and furious, Derek beside her pretending to be calm, and Brianna slouched in the back, scrolling through her phone like she didn't care who lived or died. When they saw me, Linda whispered something to Derek, and he smirked. The judge came in, gray hair, firm eyes. "This is the case of Lawson versus Miller," she said. "An emergency eviction filed by Mr. Lawson, citing elder abuse and financial exploitation." My stomach twisted at those words. Elder abuse. I hated that it had come to this. Carla stood. Your Honor, we'll keep this simple. My client provided a home for his daughter and her family for 3 years. During that time, they contributed nothing financially. Instead, they accessed his accounts, stole funds, and, as shown in the video evidence, physically assaulted him. She clicked the laptop, and the footage appeared on the monitor. There it was, Derek, in my kitchen, stepping close, shoving me back just enough to make me stumble. The judge leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing. Carla continued. We also have evidence of unauthorized use of Mr. Lawson's debit card and the sale of an item belonging to his late wife without consent. She held up the pawn slip, then the receipt for the music box. I kept my eyes on the table. Hearing it out loud hurt more than I expected. Derek's lawyer, a young guy who looked like he still needed coffee to stay awake, stood and cleared his throat. Your Honor, this is a family misunderstanding. My client's wife simply helped her father manage his things. The judge cut him off. Selling a deceased mother's keepsake for vacation money is not management. Continue. He froze, mumbled something, and sat back down. Linda suddenly blurted out. He's twisting everything. We took care of him. He's just angry because we. The judge raised her hand. Mrs. Miller, you'll wait your turn. Carla didn't even look at her. She turned to me. Mr. Lawson, did you ever give your daughter permission to sell your wife's belongings or access your accounts? No, I said quietly. I didn't give them permission for anything. And did your son-in-law ever repay the money he borrowed? Not a cent. Carla nodded. Thank you. The judge flipped through the papers, then looked directly at Linda. Mrs. Miller, your father offered a legal rental agreement at below market rate. You refused. He documented theft, unauthorized financial use, and physical intimidation. Is there anything you want to add? Linda's voice cracked. He's my dad. He's supposed to help me. The judge's eyes softened, just for a moment. He did. For years. But help is not ownership. The room went silent. I felt something heavy in my chest finally start to lift. After a few more questions, the judge closed the file. This court finds in favor of Mr. Lawson. The respondents have 30 days to vacate the property. Any further harassment or attempt to access his finances will result in criminal charges. She struck her gavel once, clear and final. Derek muttered something under his breath. Linda covered her face. Brianna just looked annoyed, like she was missing something more important. Carla placed a hand on my shoulder. It's done. Outside the courtroom, Linda caught up to me. Her eyes were red. Dad, please don't do this. We'll pay the rent. We'll change. I shook my head. You already did. She swallowed hard. Mom would be ashamed. I looked her straight in the eye. Mom would be proud. I finally listened to her. She flinched like I'd hit her, then turned away, calling for Derek. When they were gone, Carla smiled softly. You handled that with more grace than most people I know. I gave a small laugh. Grace taught me well. Outside, the sun was bright, and for the first time in years, the air didn't feel heavy. 30 days, the judge said. 30 days until my house was mine again. But the truth was, the peace had already started the moment I stopped begging to be understood. They didn't leave quietly. On the morning of the move-out date, I woke to the sound of doors slamming and boxes hitting the floor. Derek barked orders like a foreman, while Linda muttered under her breath, calling me every name she could think of. I stayed in my room, listening. I'd already packed the things that mattered. The music box, Grace's letter, a few photo albums, my tools, and my clothes. Everything else could stay or go. It didn't matter anymore. Around noon, Brianna stomped down the hallway dragging a suitcase, earbuds in, tears streaking her makeup. She stopped when she saw me. You really kicked us out, she said flatly. I didn't answer. You know, she went on, Mom's right. You changed. I looked at her, calm and steady. No, sweetheart. I finally remembered who I was. She scoffed and kept walking. Outside, the moving truck engine roared to life. Derek and Linda carried the last box through the door. Linda turned at the threshold, eyes red but still defiant. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "You got what you wanted." "No," I said softly. "I got what I deserved." Her voice shook. "We'll never forgive you." "You don't have to," I said. I forgave myself. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she turned away, slammed the door behind her, and the sound echoed through the house. I walked to the window and watched as the truck pulled out of the driveway. It was strange. After years of noise, yelling, and slammed cabinets, the silence that followed felt almost holy. When the rumble faded, I walked through the house slowly. The living room was a mess. Scratches on the floor where the couch had been, an empty bottle on the counter, crumbs ground into the rug. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee. I should have been angry, but I wasn't. I took out my phone and started recording. Each room, each mark, each dent. Not for revenge. For record. For closure. After the last clip, I set the phone down and turned the key in the lock one final time. The click echoed through the hallway. The next morning, I called Carla. "It's done," I said. "Good," she replied. "You did the hardest part." "What's next?" "Moving," I said. "I'm selling the house." She didn't sound surprised. "That's freedom, Frank. Not loss." Within 2 weeks, the sign went up, "For sale." The realtor handled the rest. Offers came fast. The place was old but solid. Grace and I built our life here, and someone else could, too. When the papers were signed and the final check cleared, I didn't feel regret. Just relief. I found a small one-bedroom apartment near the park. Second floor, simple, quiet. No shouting, no doors slamming, no footsteps at night. Just peace. On my first night there, I unpacked the music box and set it on the table by the window. The city lights blinked in the distance. I turned the crank once. Amazing grace. The sound filled the room, clear, soft, and free of echoes. Grace used to say, "You don't start over by running. You start over by coming home to yourself." I was home now. Woke up early that morning, before the sun had even touched the blinds. For a moment, I just lay there, listening to the quiet hum of my new apartment. No voices, no footsteps, no one demanding anything from me. I brewed coffee and sat by the window, watching light spill slowly across the street. The air felt different here, lighter, cleaner, like it didn't belong to anyone else. On the table beside me sat the music box. Grace's box. The wood had faded a little over the years, but it was still beautiful. I turned the crank and listened as the first notes of Amazing Grace filled the room. I thought about the woman who'd given it to me, the way she smiled when the song played, the way her eyes softened like she was hearing something only she could understand. She'd always believed in quiet strength, in doing what was right even when it hurt. I smiled. "You were right, Grace," I whispered. "You were right about everything." Her letter was still tucked in my wallet, worn from how often I'd read it. Sometimes, when the nights got too still, I'd take it out just to remind myself of her voice. Love doesn't mean surrender. She'd saved me, again. Even from the grave, she'd found a way to pull me back to myself. After breakfast, I walked down to the park nearby. It was small but full of life. Kids chasing each other, an old man feeding pigeons, a woman jogging with her dog. I sat on a bench and just breathed for a while. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something bad to happen. When I got back home, I opened the box one last time. The song played softly, and I could almost hear Grace humming along. I lifted the lid higher and saw the little secret compartment underneath, the one that had hidden her letter and the path to my freedom. I'd already filled it again, but this time with something new, a folded note of my own. It read, "To whoever finds this box someday." It once saved me when I thought I'd lost everything. It reminded me that peace isn't given, it's chosen. If you ever need a sign to start over, let this be it. Frank Lawson. I closed it gently, slid it onto the shelf near the window, and let it sit there in the sunlight. That afternoon, my new neighbor knocked on the door, a retired teacher named Henry. He held a small chessboard under his arm. "You mentioned you used to play," he said. I smiled. "Used to. Guess it's time I start again." We set it up on the table by the music box. Between moves, I caught the faint tune still lingering in the air, the last notes of Amazing Grace floating around the room. For the first time since Grace's death, I wasn't surviving. I was living. The game went on, quiet and simple. The window was open. The music box gleamed softly in the afternoon light, and I thought, this is it. This is peace. When Henry left, I stood by the window and watched the sky turn gold. I didn't need the big house anymore, or the noise, or anyone's approval. I had what mattered. Grace had given me a keepsake, but what she really left me was freedom. I turned the crank one more time. The melody filled the room, steady, tender, and whole. And as it played, I whispered, Amazing Grace. Please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Tell us the time and where you are enjoying this story from.